Ron calculated threats the way other men counted money. From his position in Club Mirage's VIP section, he cataloged everything. The bulge beneath Kim Tai-sung's jacket, a .38 revolver, predictable, the nervous sweat on the bartender's temple, the emergency exit behind the DJ booth that three of Mr. Choi's men pretended not to watch. The bass pounded through the floor like a second heartbeat, but Round's pulse remained steady, controlled. This place reeked of desperation, masked in neon pink and electric blue. Bodies pressed together on the dance floor, anonymous and interchangeable. Money changed hands in dark corners, power plays disguised as casual conversation. Rayon hated every synthetic second of it. Boss? Ji-hoon murmured beside him, voice barely audible over the music. Choi's shipment arrives Thursday. Incheon Port, Warehouse 7. Rayon didn't acknowledge the information, though he filed it away with deadly precision. Across the room, Mr. Choi raised his glass in mock salute, that smug smile plastered across his face. The rival gang leader thought himself untouchable tonight, protected by numbers, emboldened by territory disputes that had stretched 3 months too long. Rayon would correct that assumption. Soon. He lifted his whiskey, eyes scanning the crowd with the detachment of a predator assessing prey. Exit routes mapped, weapons counted, variables measured. Nothing surprised him anymore. Nothing moved him. Then the DJ switched tracks. An Amapiano beat cut through the synthetic club music, something earthy, rhythmic, alive. Rayon's attention shifted reflexively toward the source of the disturbance, and that's when the entire architecture of his control began to crumble. She wasn't on a stage. There was no spotlight, no performance, no audience she was trying to seduce. Just a woman near the bar, moving because the music demanded it. Zara. He didn't know her name yet. Didn't know anything except that his whiskey glass had frozen halfway to his mouth and his lungs had forgotten their function. She moved like water finding its path, hips rolling with unconscious confidence, arms fluid and graceful, head tilted back in pure, unguarded joy. Her curves filled a simple black dress that clung and released with every movement. The club's strobing lights painted her deep brown skin in shades of sapphire and rose gold. But it wasn't her beauty that stopped him. It was her freedom. She danced like someone who'd forgotten the world was watching, like someone who still believed in moments worth celebrating, like someone who hadn't yet learned that everything beautiful gets destroyed. Something in Round's chest, something he thought permanently calcified, shifted, then cracked, then broke open with an ache so sudden and fierce it felt like violence. His hand tightened around the glass. Ji-hoon noticed immediately. Boss? Round didn't answer. Couldn't. Every calculated thought in his head had evaporated, replaced by a single primal certainty that terrified him more than any weapon ever had. Mine. The word burned through him like a brand. She laughed at something her friend said, completely unaware that across the room, the most dangerous man in Busan had just decided her fate. Find out who she is, Raon said, voice low and rough. Sir? Everything. Name, address, visa status, debts, family. I want it within the hour. Ji-hoon's eyes widened fractionally, the only sign of his alarm. In 7 years of service, he'd never heard that tone from his boss. Never seen that look. Hunger. Raon watched her spin, watched her smile, watched her exist in a way he'd forgotten was possible. And he knew, with the same cold certainty he brought to every calculated decision, that he would have her. Not eventually. Now. His men would later say they'd never seen the boss look hungry before that night. They were wrong. He'd been starving his entire life. He just hadn't known it until she danced. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this journey into obsession and danger, hit that like button and subscribe, because what happens next will leave you breathless. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and trust me, you won't believe what Raon does when she tries to leave. 6 hours earlier, Zara Dumasani sat cross-legged on her narrow bed, staring at the pitiful stack of one notes spread across her faded blanket. She counted them for the third time, hoping the numbers would somehow multiply through sheer force of will. 340,000. Rent was 450,000. Due in 4 days. Her phone buzzed. Video call from Johannesburg. She forced brightness into her expression before answering. Cece? Thabo's face filled the screen, 16 years old and heartbreakingly hopeful. Did you get my message about the textbooks? Zara's smile didn't waver, even as her stomach twisted. I did, baby boy. How much do you need? The biology textbook is R450, but I can borrow. No borrowing. I'll send the money tomorrow. Another promise she'd have to bleed to keep. How's school? They talked for 20 minutes. Thabo's excitement about his science project, his complaints about their aunt's cooking, his dreams of studying medicine. Every word reminded Zara why she endured the sleepless nights, the expired visa hidden in her drawer like a ticking bomb, the crushing weight of being utterly alone in a country that looked through her more often than at her. After they disconnected, she sat in the silence of her tiny Itaewon apartment, a glorified closet she shared with two other foreign workers who were rarely home. The walls were so thin she could hear Mrs. Kim coughing next door. The elderly Korean woman lived alone, her pension barely covering medication. Yesterday, Zara had found her trying to stretch a single package of ramen across 3 meals. Zara looked at her own last 2 ramen packets, looked at the money that wasn't enough, made a decision. 10 minutes later, she knocked on Mrs. Kim's door. Zara, ya! The old woman's face creased with surprise and pleasure. Why you here? I cooked too much. The lie came easily, wrapped in kindness. Please, I hate wasting food. Mrs. Kim's eyes grew wet as she accepted the still warm bowl. She knew. They both knew. But dignity required the pretense. Walking back to her apartment, Zara passed her reflection in the hallway mirror. 25 years old. Beautiful by any standard, though Korea's narrow beauty ideals rarely made space for bodies like hers. Full, curved, unapologetically black. Some days she felt invisible. Other days, hypervisible in all the wrong ways. She'd come to Seoul 3 years ago on a student visa, determined to build something better. She dreamed of teaching kindergarten, of bringing Thabo over, of stability. Instead, she'd found a maze of bureaucratic impossibilities. Her Korean wasn't perfect. Her visa had expired 6 months ago. Her part-time jobs, bartending, tutoring English to bored housewives, cleaning offices at dawn, kept her treading water, but never swimming to shore. And now Kang Jinho's debt trap was closing around her throat. 2 weeks ago, desperate after Thabo's school fees came due, she'd accepted what seemed like a simple loan. Jinho's men had been so friendly, so understanding. The contract was in Korean, complex legal Korean she'd only half understood. The 2 million loan had become 15 million through interest rates that multiplied like a virus. She had 3 weeks to pay. Or Jinho would report her to immigration. Worse, he'd fabricated sponsorship documents for Thabo's visit that could implicate her brother in visa fraud. The trap was perfect, inescapable. Zara lay back on her bed, staring at the water-stained ceiling. She should feel hopeless, drowning, defeated. Instead, she felt that stubborn spark that had kept her alive through her mother's death, through raising Thabo alone from age 15, through every door that had closed in her face. I will survive this. Somehow. Her phone alarm buzzed. Time to get ready for her shift at Club Mirage. The manager owed her $300,000 from last month. Tonight, she'd get it. She'd make him pay. She chose her simplest black dress, tied her natural hair into a puff, applied the bare minimum of makeup. In the mirror, she practiced her smile. The one that said she was fine, unbothered, strong. The woman looking back at her almost believed it. Meanwhile, across the city, Rayon stood in his penthouse, studying the Busan skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. Somewhere below, millions of people lived their small, desperate lives. Struggling, suffering, surviving. He remembered that life. The taste of it still lingered sometimes, metallic and bitter. He'd been 8 years old when the loan sharks came for his father. They'd beaten him in their tiny apartment while young Raon hid in the closet, trembling. His mother's screams, his father's broken apologies. The sound of fists meeting flesh. 3 months later, his father hung himself in that same closet. His mother worked herself to death trying to pay those debts, cleaning offices, taking night shifts, skipping meals so Raon could eat. Cancer took her when he was 17. They couldn't afford treatment. Raon had learned the lesson perfectly. Power was the only protection. Control was the only safety. By 22, he'd infiltrated the Silver Fang Brotherhood. By 25, he'd orchestrated a bloodless coup that left him in command. By 27, he'd built an empire that made loan sharks bow and rivals calculate the cost of opposition. He never raised his voice, never needed to. The quiet wolf, they called him. His phone buzzed. His sister Min So, calling from Singapore where she lived safely, far from his world. Oppa, you sound tired. I'm fine. You're never fine. You're just functional. Her voice carried the affectionate exasperation of the only person who truly knew him. When's the last time you did something that wasn't about strategy or survival? Ron almost smiled. Those are the only things worth doing. That's exactly your problem. They talked briefly. Her graduate program, her new apartment, her attempts to convince him to visit. He deflected, promised vaguely, ended the call feeling the familiar hollowness. Minseo was wrong. He didn't have a problem. He had a system. Control kept him alive. Discipline kept him powerful. Emotional distance kept him from becoming his father, broken by love, destroyed by hope. Tonight's meeting with Choi was just another move on the board. Calculated, predictable, safe. Rayon adjusted his cufflinks, slipped into his black jacket, and headed toward Club Mirage with the confidence of a man who'd mapped every variable. He had no idea his entire system was about to encounter the one variable he couldn't possibly calculate: a woman who danced like freedom itself. A woman who would teach him that some hungers can't be controlled, only surrendered to. The music still thrummed in Zara's bones as she caught her breath at the bar, laughing with Hana, her favorite bartender and one of her few real friends in Seoul. "Girl, you killed it!" Hana grinned, sliding her water across the counter. Even the VIP section was watching. Zara waved her off, though her cheeks warmed. "I just needed to move. It's been a long week." "Every week is long for you." Hana's smile dimmed with concern. "Did Manager Kwan pay you yet?" As if summoned by his name, the portly manager emerged from his office, envelope in hand. Zara's heart lifted. Finally, she needed every one of that 300,000. But when she counted the bills in the back hallway, her stomach dropped. "It's not 100,000. This is wrong." She marched back to find him. "You owe me 300,000. This is barely a third." Manager Kwan wouldn't meet her eyes. "Business has been slow. I'll pay the rest next month." "Next month?" Desperation crept into her voice despite her efforts. "You said that last month. I need this money now." "Lower your voice." His tone hardened. "You're lucky I pay you at all, with your visa situation." The threat landed like a slap. Zara's jaw clenched, but what could she do? Report him? To who? She was the one working illegally. She turned away before he could see the tears burning her eyes, and that's when she spotted them. 3 men in cheap suits leaning against the far wall, watching her with the patient intensity of predators who'd already cornered their prey. She recognized the one in the middle, Sungmin, Jinho's head collector. Her blood turned to ice. 2 weeks ago, Jinho had seemed like an answer to prayer. Professional office, sympathetic smile, simple paperwork. Just sign here, here, and here. Interest is very reasonable, only 10% monthly. Zara's Korean was decent, but legal terminology swam before her eyes. She'd been too desperate to ask questions, too focused on Thabo's immediate need. The 2 million appeared in her account within hours. The first payment notice arrived a week later. 15 million due within 30 days. She'd called Jinho, certain there'd been a mistake. His laugh still echoed in her nightmares. "You signed the contract, Miss Dumasani. The interest compounds daily. But don't worry, I'm a reasonable man. We can discuss payment arrangements." Those arrangements involved threats about her expired visa, about the fake sponsorship documents he'd filed in Thabo's name without her knowledge. One call to immigration, and her brother would be implicated in visa fraud before he ever stepped foot in Korea. The trap had closed perfectly. Now Sungmin pushed off the wall, heading straight toward her. "Miss Dumasani." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Jinho sent us to remind you. Payment is due tomorrow, noon. Full amount. I don't have it." The words scraped her throat raw. "I need more time." "Time's up." He stepped closer. "Mr. Jinho's been very patient. Tomorrow, or we make that call about your brother." Panic detonated in Zara's chest. She needed to think, to breathe, to find a way out, but Sungmin's hand shot out and gripped her wrist. "Let's discuss this outside." Zara yanked free and ran. Behind her, she heard chairs scraping, shouts. She kicked off her heels, grabbed them, and sprinted toward the back corridors. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The hallway twisted. Storage rooms, kitchen entrance, staff areas she barely knew. Footsteps pounded behind her. 3 sets. Getting closer. She turned a corner and saw a door marked private in English and Korean. No other options. She slammed through it and crashed into a different world entirely. The hallway was pristine. Marble floors, recessed lighting, the kind of quiet that money bought. 4 men in black suits turned in unison. One moved to intercept her, but another, tall, with sharp eyes, raised a single hand. "Stop." The command was barely a whisper, but everyone froze. Zara spun, gasping for air, looking for another exit, and that's when she saw him. The man from the VIP section. The one who'd been watching her dance. He stood slowly, uncoiling to his full height, easily 6'2", wrapped in a black suit that probably cost more than her yearly rent. His face was all sharp angles and controlled power, beautiful in the way predators were beautiful. Dangerous. Their eyes locked. Recognition flashed in his gaze. Instant, electric, inevitable. You're the woman who was dancing. Not a question. A claim. Before Zara could respond, the door burst open behind her. Sungmin and his men stumbled through, then froze like deer scenting a wolf. The temperature in the hallway plummeted. The tall man, the one who'd stopped his guard, spoke urgently in Korean. Boss, there. I know who they are. The dangerous man's voice remained conversational, almost pleasant. His eyes never left Sungmin. You're Jinho's dogs. Sungmin's face went pale. Mr. Lee, we didn't know. This is just a debt collection. Is she yours? Simple question. Infinite threat beneath it. She owes our boss money. I asked if she belongs to you. Each word fell like a judge's gavel. The silence stretched, suffocating. Zara's mind raced. Lee? As in Lee Raon? The name whispered in certain circles, always followed by warnings to never cross him. Raon took 3 steps forward. Sungmin took 4 steps back. She's under my protection now. Raon's voice remained conversational, matter of fact. The debt transfers to me. Tell Jinho I'll settle it personally. And tell him if he comes near her again, I'll transfer his organs to the Han River. Peace. Bye, peace. Sungmin bowed so low, Zara heard his spine crack. Yes, Mr. Lee. Of course. We apologize for the... Leave. They scrambled through the door like roaches fleeing light. Zara's legs trembled. Terror, confusion, and something she refused to name flooded her system. She looked at the man who just claimed ownership of her debt, and possibly her life. Rayon looked back with eyes that held calculation, fascination, and hunger. Now, he said softly, let's discuss your situation. The door clicked shut behind Jinho's fleeing men, sealing Zara in with 5 strangers and a future she couldn't begin to map. Thank you. The words came automatically. But I should go. Where? Rayon's question was genuine curiosity. Back to your apartment that Jinho knows the address of? Back to your expired visa and fabricated documents hanging over your brother's head? Where exactly do you think you'll go? Zara's jaw tightened. That's my problem to solve. It was. He gestured to the leather chairs in his private room. Now it's mine. Sit. I'd rather stand. Something flickered in his eyes, amusement, appreciation. As you prefer. She stayed by the door, arms crossed defensively. Every survival instinct she'd honed told her to run, but her rational mind knew he was right. She had nowhere to go. No leverage, no options. Except him. What do you want in exchange? Direct question. Might as well know the price. Rayon studied her with unsettling intensity. I want you to stay where I can see you. Beyond that, I haven't decided. I'm not an object you can collect. No. The corner of his mouth almost lifted. Objects are predictable. You're something else entirely. The air between them thickened with unspoken implications. Zara's pulse hammered at her throat. This man wasn't like Jinho, slimy and obvious. He was controlled, strategic, infinitely more dangerous because she couldn't read his intentions. Here's my offer, Raon continued, settling back into his chair with predatory grace. I clear your debt completely. I provide protection, real protection, not threats disguised as help. I arrange legitimate work documentation and employment. In exchange, you stay in a property I control for your own safety. My own safety. Her voice dripped skepticism. Or your convenience? Both. At least he was honest. Jinho will retaliate, subtly but inevitably. You'll be safer under my watch. Zara's mind raced through impossible calculations. Stay here, become indebted to a man whose reputation involved words like ruthless and untouchable. Or leave, face Jinho's wrath, risk everything she'd built, doom Thabo's future. No good choices, only degrees of danger. 1 week, she heard herself say. I'll stay for 1 week while I figure things out. Then I make my own decisions. Raon's expression didn't change, but she sensed his satisfaction. He knew what she didn't want to admit. 1 week would become 2, then 4, then forever. The trap had simply changed jaws. Agreed. He stood, buttoning his jacket. Ji-hoon will escort you. 20 minutes later, Zara sat in the back of a black Mercedes, Gangnam's glittering towers rising around her like glass monuments to wealth she'd never touch. The lieutenant, Ji-hoon, drove in silence, occasionally glancing at her in the rearview mirror with barely concealed concern. The apartment building's lobby featured marble fountains and doormen in white gloves. The elevator required a key card for the penthouse level. Zara's stomach knotted tighter with each floor they climbed. The apartment itself stole her breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's nightscape, minimalist furniture that screamed expensive taste, a kitchen bigger than her entire previous apartment. Boss arranged for your belongings to be transferred, Ji-hoon said quietly. Already? Anger sparked. He's very presumptuous. He's very thorough. Jihoon's tone held no apology. I'll be nearby if you need anything. Translation: I'll be watching you. After he left, Zara found her meager possessions neatly arranged in the master bedroom. Her clothes looked ridiculous in the walk-in closet designed for someone with an actual wardrobe. She called Thabo immediately, forcing brightness into her voice. Guess what? I got an amazing job opportunity. They're even providing housing. His excitement should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like another lie added to the pile crushing her chest. That night, sleep proved impossible. At 2 a.m., Zara wandered to the balcony for air and found she wasn't alone. Ron stood at the railing, cigarette between his fingers, a rare vice that somehow made him more human. He'd shed his jacket, his white shirt glowed ghostly in the city lights. Can't sleep, he asked without turning. Strange beds. She kept her distance. And stranger circumstances. You'll adjust. Will I? She moved beside him, maintaining careful space. Why did you help me? And don't say you haven't decided. People like you don't make moves without reasons. He took a long drag, exhaling smoke that the wind scattered. I don't know yet. That bothers me more than it should. The honesty surprised her. I'm not going to fall in love with you, Zara said bluntly, just because you paid off my debt. Good. Something dark flickered across his face. I don't trust love, but I trust what I saw when you danced. That was real. Everything else in my life is a lie. The vulnerability in those words cracked something in her chest. She studied his profile, the sharp jaw, the shadows beneath his eyes, the controlled way he held himself even in private moments. Your hands, she heard herself say, they're scarred. He glanced at his knuckles, old marks, faded but permanent. Building empires requires dirty work. Yet you hand me tea gently. His eyes found hers, and the intensity made her breath catch. Perhaps I don't want to break what I just claimed. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it, and whatever he saw made his expression harden. Problem? She asked. Always. He stubbed out the cigarette. Jihoon just informed me that Jinho has contacted Mr. Choi, the rival I mentioned. What does that mean? Raon's smile was all predator. It means Jinho's pride is wounded, and he's seeking bigger teeth. It also means they now know about you, a foreign woman under my protection. Potential leverage. Fear iced Zara's spine. I've made you vulnerable. No. He turned fully toward her, and she suddenly understood why people called him dangerous. You've given me clarity. I know exactly what I'm protecting now. And what's that? Something real in a world of lies. He headed toward the door, pausing at the threshold. Get some sleep, Zara. Tomorrow, you start work at my dealership. Legitimate employment, as promised. Jihoon will teach you basic self-defense in the evenings. Why would I need? Because I protect what's mine. But I prefer what's mine can also protect itself. He left before she could argue about the possessive pronoun. Zara stood on the balcony long after, watching Seoul's lights blur and refocus, wondering how dancing to a single song had detonated her entire existence. Behind her, in the apartment's shadows, her new life waited with teeth and promises she didn't know whether to trust. 1 week dissolved into routine, so seamless, Zara almost forgot she was living in a gilded cage. Elysian Motors occupied 3 pristine floors in Gangnam, showcasing luxury vehicles that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. Zara's role as receptionist proved surprisingly natural. Her warmth disarmed wealthy clients, her attention to detail impressed the sales team, and her willingness to learn earned quiet respect. She was good at this. It felt like building something real. Miss Dumasani. Mr. Park, the senior salesman, waved her over. Can you help Mr. Kim with the Bentley financing paperwork? Zara smiled at the nervous young client, a tech entrepreneur drowning in his success. Of course, let's make this simple. 20 minutes later, Mr. Kim left beaming, paperwork complete. Zara was organizing files when she felt it. That particular electric charge that announced Raon's presence before she saw him. He stood near the showroom entrance in charcoal gray, watching her with an intensity that made her skin warm. She'd been laughing with Mr. Park about something inconsequential, but under Raon's gaze, the laughter died. His expression revealed nothing. Yet something dark flickered behind those carefully controlled eyes. Jealousy. The realization shocked her. Miss Dumasani. His voice carried across the showroom. My office, now. The staff suddenly found reasons to look extremely busy. In his private office, all leather and steel and floor-to-ceiling windows, Raon closed the door with deliberate care. You're adapting well, he said. Was that why you summoned me? A performance review? No. He moved to the window, hands in his pockets. I'm taking you to dinner tonight to discuss your employment contract. Is that what we're calling it? His mouth almost curved. Be ready at 7. The restaurant was the kind of place Zara had only glimpsed in magazines. Understated elegance where the absence of price tags meant you couldn't afford to ask. The private room featured silk wallpaper and a table set for two, intimate in a way that made business dinner feel like a beautiful lie. This seems excessive for discussing employment terms, Zara said, accepting the menu. Perhaps I wanted to see you somewhere besides the apartment and office. So this is a date? Would you prefer I called it an interrogation? Despite herself, she smiled. At least that would be honest. Raon selecting wine with casual expertise. Zara choosing carefully, aware of every one even though he was paying. Old habits died hard. The conversation started professionally but drifted like smoke towards something more dangerous. Personal. Real. My mother died when I was 15, Zara found herself saying. Car accident. Sudden. One moment she was there, the next, she swallowed. Thabo was barely 6. I dropped out of school to raise him. Roan's expression softened almost imperceptibly. You were a child yourself. I didn't have a choice. Our father left before Thabo was born. No other family, just us. She met his eyes. That's why I can't fail him now. He's everything. I understand that loyalty. Roan's fingers traced his wineglass rim. My father died when I was 8. Loan sharks beat him until something inside broke. My mother worked herself to death trying to pay his debts. Cancer took her when I was 17. We couldn't afford treatment. The raw pain in those words struck Zara's chest. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me everything I needed to survive. He paused. I have a sister, Minso. She lives in Singapore, safely away from my world. She's the only person who... He stopped, as if surprised by his own candor. Who knows you're human? Something like that. Zara looked around the restaurant, the subdued luxury, the careful attention to detail. This place is beautiful. I bought it 3 years ago. His voice dropped. My mother used to clean here. Late shifts, minimum wage, invisible labor. I watched her scrub floors where rich people ate food she couldn't afford. He met Zara's eyes. I've never brought anyone here before. I don't know why I brought you. The vulnerability in that admission cracked something open between them. Zara reached across the table, her brown fingers covering his scarred knuckles. Thank you for telling me. He looked at their joined hands like they were a puzzle he couldn't solve. Walking back to the car, Zara's heel caught on uneven pavement. She stumbled. Round's reflexes were instant, catching her waist, pulling her against his chest. Time crystallized, his face inches from hers, his breath warm against her lips, his hands steady on her body. The city noise faded to white static. Every logical reason to pull away evaporated under the heat of his gaze. Zara moved first, stepping back on trembling legs. This can't happen. I'm not part of your world. You've been part of my world since the moment I saw you. His voice came out rough, barely controlled. Stop pretending otherwise. Rayon, his phone shattered the moment, buzzing with violent insistence. He answered, his expression shifting from frustrated desire to cold fury in seconds. We need to go. Now. The apartment looked like violence had learned to speak Korean. Furniture overturned, glass shattered, and Jihoon, loyal, careful Jihoon, slumped against the wall, face bloody but alive, being tended by a medic. Spray painted across the pristine white wall in crimson. She was mine first. But worse, so much worse, were the photographs scattered across the floor. Thabo? Leaving school in Johannesburg. Walking home, laughing with friends, each photo time-stamped. Recent. A message screaming, we can reach him anytime. Zara's legs gave out. Round caught her before she hit the ground, but she couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the images of her baby brother targeted because of her. This is my fault. Tears burned hot trails down her face. I should never have. I should leave. Round's hands gripped her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. You're not going anywhere. He made this personal. I'm going to end him. More violence won't fix this. Violence is the only language men like him understand. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Round answered on speaker. The video message showed Jinho and Mr. Choi standing together. Alliance clear. Choi's voice dripped false courtesy. Lee Round, we have simple terms. Hand over the woman, public apology, 60% of your Busan territory, or we send evidence of your operations to police and immigration, complete with documentation of how you've harbored an illegal immigrant. You have 48 hours. The screen went dark. Silence pressed down like a physical weight. Then Rowan did something that shocked everyone. He made a call. Choi, I accept your meeting terms. Neutral ground. Tomorrow night. He paused. And I'm bringing her. Ji-hoon struggled to his feet despite the medic's protests. Boss, this is a trap. I know. Round's voice held deadly calm. That's why she's coming with me. Zara stared. What? Round turned to her, and the raw determination in his face stole her breath. They think you're my weakness. I'm going to show them you're my weapon. The warehouse crouched by Incheon docks like a corpse, rusted metal skeleton, broken windows, the Han River's stench mixing with industrial decay. Perfect neutral ground, which meant perfectly dangerous. Round's car pulled up to 20 men arranged in threatening formation. Jinho and Mr. Choi stood at the center, backlit by portable lights that turned them into shadow puppets of menace. Just us three, Round said quietly. He, Ji-hoon, and Zara stepped out. Suicide math. 3 against 20. Choi's laughter echoed off metal walls. The quiet wolf brought his pet? How domesticated you've become, Lee. Round's expression revealed nothing, but Zara felt the violence coiled beneath his stillness. She'd learned to read him this past week. Every micro-expression, every controlled breath. He was terrified. For her. State your terms, Ron said flatly. Terms? Choi circled like a shark scenting blood. First, we need insurance. Your woman comes with us during negotiations. Collateral, she comes back unharmed when you agree to everything. No. Jinho pulled a gun, pointed it at the ground near Zara's feet. The shot cracked loud. Concrete chips spraying. Zara flinched but didn't scream. Wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Give her to us for 1 hour, Choi said smoothly. We just want to talk. Surely the great Lee Ron can negotiate without his security blanket? Ron's control fractured, pure, undiluted rage flashing across his face before he caught it. His hand moved toward his jacket. Zara stepped forward before he could act. I'll go. No. Ron's voice came out strangled. She met his eyes, pouring every ounce of trust she'd built into her gaze. You taught me. Appear weak when you're strong. She whispered the words only he could hear. Trust me. Every line of his body screamed refusal. But he gave a microscopic nod. Zara walked toward Jinho, each step feeling like she was wading through concrete. She didn't look back, couldn't, or her courage would shatter. Jinho's smile was all teeth. Smart girl. They led her to a back room, windowless, single exit, the kind of place where screams died unheard. Jinho dismissed his men, closing the door with deliberate care. Finally. He circled her slowly. Do you know how much trouble you've caused me? Zara kept her voice steady. You caused your own trouble with your greed. My greed? He laughed, moving closer. This was never about money, you stupid bitch. I'm Choi's cousin. The debt was designed to give us leverage against Lee Raon. You were bait from the beginning. The words hit like physical blows. What? We needed to find his weakness. Turns out, Jinho's hand shot out, gripping her chin roughly. It's a foreign whore with an expired visa. Zara jerked away, mind racing. If this was always a setup, then nothing she'd done could have prevented it. The trap was built before she ever walked into it. Jinho leaned close, his breath hot against her face. You really think he cares about you? Men like us don't love, we own. And soon, we'll own everything he built. Meanwhile, in the main warehouse, Raon endured his own hell. Choi listed demands with theatrical pleasure. 60% of your territory, 5 million in cash, public acknowledgement of my supremacy, and you stay away from Busan for 5 years. Each word was a knife, but Raon's focus fragmented between forced negotiation and the closed door hiding Zara. Ji-hoon whispered urgently, Boss, our backup is positioned. Give the signal. Not until she's safe. In the back room, Zara's hands trembled, but her mind sharpened. She thought of everything Raon had taught her during evening training sessions, how to read a room, exploit weaknesses, create opportunities. When trapped, don't look for the door, create one. You're right, she said softly, drawing Jinho's attention. Maybe I've been foolish. She let her posture soften, vulnerability replacing defiance. Jinho's eyes tracked the change, predatory interest kindling. Men like him always underestimated women who showed weakness. His mistake. He stepped closer, reaching for her face again, and Zara grabbed the glass bottle from the shelf behind her, swinging with every ounce of strength and fear and fury. The bottle exploded against his temple. Jinho crumpled. Zara snatched his phone, her fingers flying. Back room, surrounded. Come now. She sent the message to the last number that had called, Rayon. Then she ran. Bursting through the door, she found a maze of corridors and storage areas. Footsteps pounded behind her, Jinho's men responding to their boss's shouts. In the main warehouse, Raon's phone buzzed. He read Zara's message and the world stopped. Choi noticed his distraction. Problem, Lee? Or have you finally realized you're beaten? Raon stood slowly, every movement deliberate. When he spoke, his voice carried the finality of an executioner's blade. Make your choice, Wolf. Your empire or your woman. You can't have both. Raon's smile was all predator. I choose her. I'll always choose her. He raised his hand, signal given. Glass shattered. Smoke grenades detonated. Raon's hidden men swarmed through every entrance. And in the chaos, Raon moved with singular purpose toward the back corridors, toward Zara, toward the only thing that mattered anymore. Everything he'd built, power, control, empire, meant nothing if she wasn't safe. Chaos became Raon's natural habitat. Smoke grenades detonated in perfect synchronization. His men had rehearsed this extraction a dozen times. Through the haze, Raon moved like death given purpose. No wasted motion, no hesitation. Every strike calculated to incapacitate, not kill. He needed answers, not corpses. One of Choi's men raised a weapon. Ji-hoon's shot took him in the shoulder before he could fire. Another lunged with a knife. Raon sidestepped, drove his elbow into the man's temple, kept moving. He had one objective: reach her. The warehouse's layout burned in his memory from the brief surveillance his team had conducted. Back corridors, storage areas, basement level where old shipping containers created a labyrinth, where Zara was running for her life. In the basement, Zara's lungs burned. The concrete maze of storage and abandoned equipment offered hiding places but no exits. Behind her, 3 sets of footsteps echoed. Jinho's men, hunting. Nowhere to run, bitch! One shouted in Korean. Zara's mind raced through her options. She'd never been in a real fight before last week. When Ji-hoon started teaching her basics during evening sessions, she thought were paranoid overkill. Now those lessons were the difference between victim and survivor. She ducked behind a stack of chemical drums, spotted a metal pipe on the ground, grabbed it. Her hands shook, but her grip held firm. When the first man rounded the corner, Zara swung low, connected with his knee. He screamed, crumpled. She didn't wait, ran deeper into the basement. 2 left. She found herself in a dead end, shipping containers stacked 3 high, creating walls. The men's footsteps grew louder. Got you now. They emerged from opposite sides, boxing her in. One held a crowbar, the other cracked his knuckles with anticipation. Zara raised the pipe, legs planted like Ji-hoon taught her. Stay back, they laughed. Then the basement door exploded inward. Raon saw red. The door hadn't just opened. He'd kicked it off its hinges with violence born of terror. The scene before him froze into brutal clarity. Zara backed against containers, 2 men closing in, the metal pipe in her hands her only defense. Time crystallized. Their eyes met across the smoke-filled space. In hers, relief, fear, unshakable trust. In his, feral possession, lethal promise, love that looked like vengeance. The men turned toward the new threat. Fatal mistake. Raon moved like a force of nature, grabbed the first man's wrist, twisted until bone cracked, swept his legs. The man hit concrete hard. The second swung his crowbar. Raon caught it mid-arc, yanked it away, used it to drive the man back 3 steps before disarming him with surgical precision. Throughout it all, his eyes never left Zara, making sure she was whole. Safe, his. Within 30 seconds, both men lay incapacitated, groaning. Raon crossed to Zara in 3 strides, hands immediately moving over her, checking for injuries with trembling fingers that betrayed every crack in his legendary control. Are you hurt? Did they touch you? Tell me. Zara collapsed into him, her strength finally giving out. Sobs racked her body, fear and adrenaline and relief pouring out in waves she couldn't contain. I thought, she gasped against his chest. I thought I'd never. I know. His arms wrapped around her like he could absorb her pain. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. He pulled back just enough to frame her face with his hands, and the vulnerability in his expression shattered every wall she'd tried to maintain. Then he kissed her. Desperate, claiming, terrified. Years of emotional fortification crumbling under the weight of nearly losing what he'd only just found. Zara kissed him back with equal intensity, finally admitting what her heart had known since that first night. This wasn't gratitude or Stockholm Syndrome or desperation. This was love. Inconvenient, dangerous, undeniable love. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Raon pressed his forehead to hers. I'm not letting you go, he said against her hair. Not ever. Not for my empire, not for my life, not for anything. You're mine, and I'm yours. Do you understand? I understand. Her voice trembled but held certainty. I feel the same. I hate that I do, but I do. Footsteps on the stairs, Ji-hoon appeared, slightly winded. Boss? We've secured the building. Choi escaped in the chaos, but He held up a phone. We found this on one of his lieutenants. You need to see this. Rayon took the phone, Zara still tucked against his side. His expression shifted as he scrolled through files, from protective fury to strategic calculation. What is it? Zara asked. Evidence. Rayon's voice held cold satisfaction. Communications between Choi and Jinho. Financial records. But more, connections to human trafficking operations, drug distribution networks, evidence of bribes to officials we can leverage. Ji-hoon nodded. This doesn't just implicate Choi, this destroys him. Rayon's mind worked through possibilities with mechanical precision. We need Director Han. He owes me. I cleared his gambling debts 3 years ago, kept his daughter's scandal out of the press. Time to call in those markers. He made the call, speaking rapid Korean, while Zara listened to the rhythm of his negotiation. She was beginning to understand. This man wasn't just a criminal. He was a strategist operating in shades of gray that most people never saw. When he ended the call, his expression held grim satisfaction. Han will coordinate a raid on Choi's shipyard, his last stronghold. In exchange for this evidence and our cooperation, he'll wipe your immigration issues completely, grant you protected status, and provide immunity for my legitimate business operations. You're dismantling part of your empire, Zara said softly. For me? No. Raon turned to face her fully. I'm building something new, something that includes a future instead of just survival. She saw it then. Not the crime lord, but the man beneath. Brilliant. Wounded. Willing to burn everything he'd built for a chance at something real. Zara made her own decision. When this is over, we build something new. Together. Something clean. Raon's expression held surprise and something deeper. Hope, maybe. You'd stay? Even knowing what I am? I know who you are. She touched his face, fingers tracing the sharp line of his jaw, and I'm not afraid anymore. Ji-hoon cleared his throat. Boss, Han wants to move tonight? Choi's at the shipyard, probably planning his next move. If we're doing this, it's now. Raon's hand found Zara's. It's dangerous. Everything worth having is, she echoed his own words back. His almost smile appeared, rare as lightning, just as electric. Then let's end this. The shipyard sprawled like an industrial graveyard under the moon. Cargo containers stacked in maze-like formations. The Han River's black water lapping against concrete, sodium lights casting everything in shades of amber and shadow. Raon's car stopped at the entrance. Against Ji-hoon's vehement protests, Zara had refused to stay behind. He'll use me as leverage whether I'm here or not, she'd argued. At least this way I control when and how. Choi waited in the center clearing, surrounded by his remaining forces, maybe 15 men, wounded pride making them reckless. Jinho stood beside him, face bandaged from Zara's bottle attack, murder in his eyes. Lee Raon. Choi's voice echoed off metal. Come to surrender? Or die? Raon walked forward, Zara at his side, Ji-hoon flanking. The gesture was clear. They came as equals, not captor and captive. Choi's laugh was ugly. You sacrificed everything for her. How pathetic. No, Raon's voice carried absolute certainty. I sacrificed nothing. I chose everything. Chose? Choi gestured to his men. You chose to lose your empire, your reputation, your power, all for foreign pussy. Zara felt Raon tense, but his expression remained calm. Controlled. I chose love over fear, Raon said simply. You wouldn't understand the difference. Choi's smile turned vicious. Let me show you fear. He pulled a detonator from his jacket. Industrial grade, professional. I've rigged this entire shipyard with explosives. Military grade. If I go down, everyone does. You have 15 minutes to decide. Walk away and let me leave Korea untouched, or we all become ash. A digital timer on the detonator began counting down. 1447, 446. Zara's blood ran cold. This wasn't a bluff. Choi's desperation was evident in every rigid line of his body. This is all your fault, you foreign bitch. Choi's rage suddenly focused on Zara like a spotlight. None of this would have happened if you just stayed in your place. Zara stepped forward, voice steady despite the fear trying to choke her. No, this is your fault. You built an empire on fear and cruelty. He built his on loyalty. That's why you've already lost. Choi lunged, pure rage overriding strategy. Raon intercepted him mid-strike. What followed wasn't a fight. It was years of rivalry, resentment, and violence distilled into brutal efficiency. They crashed through shipping container doors, fists meeting flesh with sickening precision. Choi fought dirty. Eye gouges, groin strikes, anything to win. Raon fought coldly, every move designed to dismantle, to dominate, to end this permanently. Blood sprayed, bone cracked. The timer kept counting 11:23, 11:22. While they fought, Jinho saw his opportunity. He pulled a gun, aimed at Zara. You ruined everything. Time slowed. Zara remembered Jihoon's training. Disarm, don't freeze. She moved on pure instinct, sidestepped the gun's line, grabbed Jinho's wrist, twisted hard while driving her knee into his groin. He doubled over. She wrenched the gun free, brought the butt down on his temple. Jinho crumpled. Rayon, seeing this from across the clearing while pinning Choi, felt something in his chest crack open. Pride, love, recognition that she'd saved herself. Sirens wailed in the distance. Director Han's forces approaching. Choi heard them too. Despite his injuries, he laughed through bloodied teeth. You think you've won? I still have the detonator. Ji-hoon stepped into the light, holding up a small device. You mean this detonator? We disarmed the explosives an hour ago. Round's been stalling you while our people swept the shipyard. Choi's expression collapsed. Disbelief, rage, absolute defeat. The police swarmed in like a flood. Helicopters, tactical units, overwhelming force. Choi tried to run, made it 3 desperate steps before Round's voice cut through the chaos. Stop. Simple word, absolute command. Choi froze like a puppet with cut strings, unable to disobey that tone, even in defeat. Round walked to him slowly, deliberately. You made me choose between my empire and her. I chose her. But here's what you never understood. She made me stronger, not weaker. You lost the moment you underestimated what love could build. Police descended, cuffing Choi and Jinho. Ji-hoon handed Director Han the evidence, the phone with all its damning files. Han scanned through it, eyebrows rising. This is comprehensive. Human trafficking, drug distribution, enough to put him away for life. Our deal? Rayon asked quietly. Han nodded. Honored, but there's something else. He pulled out a file, handed it to Ron. Your woman's background check revealed interesting information. Ron opened it, expression shifting to surprise. He looked at Zara, then back at the file. Your father was Thando Dumasani, South African intelligence officer who helped Korean agents extract political refugees during the apartheid transition. Your family is listed as Petit allies in our database. Han's voice held respect. Miss Dumasani, your immigration status was never truly at risk. Jinho's threats were hollow. One call to the right department would have cleared everything. The words hung in the air like revelation. Zara stared. I was never trapped. Not by the system, Han confirmed. Round turned to her, understanding blooming. You were never trapped. You chose to stay. Zara met his eyes. No regret, no hesitation. I chose you. Around them, police processed the scene. Round's men began the work of restructuring, going legitimate, severing ties to criminal operations, keeping only what could withstand scrutiny. Ji-hoon approached, tablet in hand. Boss, the organization is waiting for direction. Round made the announcement, full restructuring, legitimate businesses only. Those who couldn't adapt would receive generous severance and safe passage out. Most stayed, loyal to him, not the crime. As dawn broke over the Han River, Ron and Zara stood at the shipyard's edge, police lights fading behind them. I don't regret any of it, Ron said quietly. The violence, the risk, it brought me to you. And I don't regret dancing that night. Zara leaned into him. Even though you were terrifying. His mouth curved, actual smile, rare and genuine. Was I? You still are. But now I know. You're mine too. 3 months later, Zara stood before 23 kindergartners at Seoul International Academy, watching their eyes light up as she taught them a traditional South African song. Her work visa, legitimate, legal, permanent, sat framed in her new apartment as a reminder that some cages only existed in the mind. This was her dream job. Finally real. Thabo had visited for 2 weeks in July, initially eyeing Rayon with the protective suspicion only younger brothers possessed. But watching Rayon patiently teach him Korean phrases, seeing how gently he treated Zara, Thabo's resistance melted. He's scary, Thabo admitted on his last night. But he looks at you like you're his whole world. Because I am, Rayon had said simply, not embarrassed to admit it. Rayon himself had transformed in ways even Ji-hoon found startling. Elysian Motors expanded into Singapore and Tokyo, legitimate empire built on integrity rather than intimidation. Min Seo returned to Korea, started a foundation for children of incarcerated parents, finally safe in her brother's new world. And twice a week, Rayon attended therapy. Zara never asked what he discussed, but she noticed how the nightmares decreased, how his smiles came easier, how he'd started using the word home without flinching. On a Friday evening, Rayon led Zara to the penthouse rooftop she'd never seen. When the door opened, she gasped. A garden bloomed there. South African proteas in full glory, their exotic petals like flames frozen in time. Her favorite flowers. He'd built this for her. I need to ask you something, Ryan said, voice steady but eyes vulnerable. Zara's heart began racing. Is this another one of your orders? He smiled, full, genuine, the smile he saved only for her, and dropped to one knee. Zara Dumasani, you danced into my life and taught me that control isn't strength. Surrender is. Will you marry me? The ring was simple perfection, a single diamond that caught Soul's sunset and threw rainbows across his hopeful face. Tears blurred her vision. You know I will, but only if you promise to dance with me. I'm a terrible dancer. I know. She pulled him up, laughing through tears. I'll teach you. 2 weeks later, they returned to Club Mirage, now under new management, ethical and clean. When the DJ played that Ame Piano song, Zara pulled Raon onto the floor. He moved awkwardly, stiff with self-consciousness, but trying. For her, always for her. She guided his hips, laughing at his concentrated expression. See? You're not so scary when you move. Only you could make me do this. Only you would do it for me. Around them, life continued. Jihoon danced with his lawyer girlfriend, finally smiling freely. Hana worked the bar, now marketing director for Raon's company. Mrs. Kim sat in the VIP section, honored guest, watching her favorite young couple with wet eyes. Later, on their balcony where everything had changed, Zara watered her plants while Raon reviewed contracts. Comfortable silence. Domestic peace. Earned through fire and choice. Do you ever miss it? She asked softly. The danger? The power? Ron set down his papers, pulled her onto his lap, buried his face in her neck. I traded danger for peace, power for partnership, control for love. I've never been wealthier. Zara kissed his forehead. My dangerous, reformed, terrible dancing wolf. Yours, always yours. Their fingers intertwined, Soul's light spreading below like fallen stars. The future stretched ahead, unwritten, uncertain, beautiful. She came to Korea searching for survival. She found a life worth living. He ruled an empire of shadows. She taught him to live in the light. Some love stories begin with a glance. Theirs began with a dance and ended with a vow that nothing, not danger, not distance, not destiny, could break. If this story touched your heart, show some love by hitting that like button and subscribing for more powerful stories of love, redemption, and second chances. Now tell me, have you ever met someone who changed your entire life in a single moment? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one.